gave Adam and Eve everything in the garden, but said, do not eat of this fruit, because this will cause you to sin. And Adam and Eve disobeyed, and eventually sin entered the world. Once sin enters the world, everything starts to degenerate. Okay, everything starts to die off. So this is what's the next stage of what's happening. We're going to jump quickly from creation, all the beauty of God's creation. Now we're going into the why everything's degenerating. And there's some interesting things. Genesis chapter 6. This chapter is one of my favorite chapters in Genesis because it talks about some strange things that I've always wondered about. Okay, what are they? Now it came about when man began to multiply on the face of the land. That means when man began to increase more and more. Okay? And daughters were born to them. That the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and he took wives for them, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. You see, God started cutting off the limit how long a man could live. Okay? The Nephilim, now this verse, I think this is one of my most interesting verses in the Bible, because I've studied this verse for years and done research on it and talked to people. And not everyone knows for sure what this is, but this is a very interesting word. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of God, they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Okay? The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of thoughts of his heart was only evil. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Okay? So, we won't go anymore, but this is what's happening now. The earth was there, everything was beautiful. Adam sinned, he fell, okay? And all of a sudden, what happens to Adam and Eve? They're cast out from the Garden of Eden. God says, you cannot stay here anymore. You cannot stay in my presence anymore. But you see how much God still loved man. Like, he didn't just say, get away, you're finished. You know, God did some things to take care of Adam and Eve. Okay? Sent them to another place, but there was punishment for their sins. So what happens, you jump down many, many generations. Adam gave birth, Adam and Eve, they had children, many kids, right? The children gave birth, and all of a sudden, you're getting a lot of people filling the earth. Millions and millions all of a sudden, okay? Increasing on the earth. And then wickedness started. Because of sin, more and more wickedness started happening. So go back to Genesis 6:4 with the Nephilim, and go back one more. One more, there you go. Okay. So who are these creatures called the Nephilim? Does anyone know? Has anyone ever heard of these creatures called the Nephilim? Who has? No? Want to guess? No, they don't speak about this in Korean? No? You never heard Nephilim? Okay. If you translate that word, Nephilim, it actually means the mighty men, or it means giants. Okay? Giants, right? For some of you Hebrew scholars. You know what giants are? Big, big people. Now, do you believe in giants? Did they actually walk on the earth? Well, you know what? There's a lot of proof that there were giants on the earth at one time. Okay? And let me tell you a story about these giants. They were amazing people, but they were evil. What happened was, how did these Nephilims, these giants, come about? According to this verse, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. These are days of men. Days started to get evil. And also afterwards. Who's that afterwards? Do you know Goliath? Have you heard of Goliath in the Bible? David killed Goliath with a stone. Well, Goliath was a giant. Okay? He was part of that race. There were many people living in those on the earth at that time that were giants in the land. And see, so they were there in those days and also afterwards when the sons of God came to the daughters of man. And that's another thing. Who are the sons of God? Who are the daughters of man? This is where it gets, according to many scholars, this is where the whole thing broke down and why God destroyed the earth. It's because many people believe the sons of God are, anyone want to guess? Who are they? Yes? Adam's descendants? You mean men? Like, okay. They could be. Some of the creationists believe that. But most people believe the sons of God are often referred to as angels in the Bible. when you hear the term sons of God, okay? So there were angels walking around that came to earth, and they either took the body of man, or they went to the women, the daughters of man, who were just normal women on the earth, and they interbred with them, okay? You understand that? They produced offsprings. They produced babies, and these babies became what you call the Nephilims, the giants of the land, okay? Now again, this is a theory that is not totally proven, but a lot of scholars believe that. That's what happened. Because they became huge people in the land. I've even heard a guy speak one time, and he says these giants were such a problem, they started eating humans in the land. They were always looking for food, and they were destroying everything, okay? And the earth became very, very evil. And that's why, if you keep reading on in Genesis, what happens after this point? God looked on the earth, and it says he was grieved in his heart. Have you ever read anywhere in the Bible where God was grieved, that God was in so much pain? You know, if you keep going, God was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Something happened. When the giants came, when the sons of God came down, bred with the women of the earth, they produced these big things called Nephilim, these giants, and they caused a lot of problems. And there was a lot of sin on the earth, and there was a lot of issues. And God said, this cannot go on anymore. And what he did was, basically, he told Noah, I'm going to destroy the earth. Because he was so sad. He was grieved in his heart. His spirit was hurting so much. He says, I wish I had never created man. Can you imagine that? The thought of that. That God was sorry that he created us, and God was sorry for all the creation. And God eventually said, I'm going to destroy the earth. But again, because of God's great love, I'm jumping stories here, because you know the story of Noah, right? God said, Noah, I'm going to save the human race and the birds and all the living creatures through you, through your family, and through, you know, the two animals you bring onto the ark. And you know that each one of you are descendants from Noah's 3 kids. You know that? He has 3 boys. I was reading about this some more last night. Shem, Ham, and Japheth was the name of the 3 kids, and they had wives. They went into the ark. They were all saved. And to make a long story short, basically, when they came out of the ark, they moved to different parts of the world, and we are all descendants from that. For you that are Asians here today, which is pretty much all of us are Asians, we all came from the line of Shem, okay? We think that's the line we're from. Ham is the line of the Africans.